bikes.
Where?
On X Games. Okay.
I don't know how we got here. I really don't, but it's been a long journey. It's a marathon. So basically, she wanted a Barbie doll four-wheeler for her second birthday. So I got her a electric four-wheeler.
Oh my goodness, if you could have seen her, and she would just be screaming to talk her lungs, just laughing and carrying on.
I wanted the plastic toy car thing you get at Walmart. My dad said no because they have plastic tires. We have a gravel driveway, those don't mix. I ended up loving it. Don't really remember, but I ended up loving it, even at 2 years old.
She was driving that thing fast.
So then I went to the fun cycles up here to buy a real four-wheeler, you know, and they're like, well, how old's your kid? Well, 2, but she's about to turn 3. And they're like, oh, you know, we almost got into literally a fight, because I don't fight, but it got very serious and heated. And I'm like, well, look, here's the deal. My kid wants something, what do I do? And they're like, oh, buy her a PW50. I'm like, well, that's a freaking motorcycle, that's dangerous. I'm not sticking my kid on a PW50, I'm just not doing it. And they're like, no, you put training wheels on it.
When I first started getting dirt bikes, he built a dirt bike track out my house because we didn't have enough land for it. Well, it just progressively kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, from grass to 55-foot jump with a ramp.
She just kept doing more and more. And this is before she had turned 4. And before she turned 4, she would ride it with training wheels, and there's pictures on the internet. She'd be 5 feet in the air with training wheels jumping the PW50.
And my mom kind of just didn't know about it one day. The new car that she had at the time that I'm actually driving now, we took it on the track and I jumped my ramp over the car and she was working in the office down below. She walks outside one day and sees her car getting jumped and she's like, what is going on?
She had a really bad crash, so I thought, maybe we'll just quit this altogether. And then, you know, she went back riding after that, but this guy, David Evans, who's been following her all through motocross and everything else and giving us advice, he's a wonderful guy. He's like, you just need to get her out of bikes and into cars. Somehow we got connected to this guy by the name of Jeff Palagy. He built her a car, and he's like, you got to get introduced to the Greaves, and he knew the Greaves through the industry. So he called me, we talked. He's like, why don't you just fly up to meet us? So we flew up, spent a weekend with them. They're super people. And he's like, well, why don't you just send me her car? And the next thing he's like, well, why don't you come up and test? So she went up there and tested, and you know, they're like, oh, okay, she got something. And so they're like, well, how about we just start taking her some races? And then, you know, then it was just, I think she's been with them 3-4 years now, and they've been amazing, absolutely amazing.
To be able to be partners with them and to be able to have them with me for the past 3 years is absolutely insane. They've genuinely become just family to me, and they don't seem like the big names that they are until I really think about it, or I see all these posts about it and fans coming up to them. I'm just like, oh, hey, that's just like my dad and brother right there.
Mike Bliss, who's a truck champion, he's like, why don't you go over there and drive that sprint car with Daly? And of course, Gray never says no to anything. She never says no. So she went over there and stuck her in a micro sprint, a little 600.
Little beanpole of a kid, and I'm like, holy cow, what did you get me into, Bliss? She walked up, very quiet, didn't say hardly anything, sat in the car. I remember Dad saying, do you want to do it? And she's like, yeah, and the next thing I know, she's in the car, and we're running around Millbridge.
Mark Daly was like, you know what, she's good enough to take to the Tulsa Shootout. Let's just go to the Tulsa Shootout.
I wasn't worried about her doing anything that would get hurt. I wasn't sure how good she was going to do. And I was more worried about, boy, I hope she didn't look silly.
And so instead of racing at Millbridge every week, we eventually got into a sprint car. And the first time I ever actually drove one was during a race, which seems to be a common theme.
Mark is like, we got to get her a 305. We got to get her in a real sprint car. And then, like, never been in a sprint car, never driven a sprint car. She goes up there to this sprint car race. And the funny thing is she was too light to turn the wheels over. They just struggled because it rained and rained and rained. She never saw the track, never got out and walked the track. Finally, right before qualifying, it was her time to qualify. She missed all the practices. So she went out and there was 24 drivers, bad conditions. She does well in bad conditions because she's calm. The conditions were terrible. So she qualified 6th out of 24 in a USAC race and then finished 9th overall.
He was a nervous wreck. I don't think he'll ever admit it, but he was. You
know, it was pretty cool. She went out, she tested, and Bernie came back to me and he said, man, I didn't have any kind of an expectation. I really didn't have any expectations, but like she's on the gas. She's good. You're what you told me is right.
Racing World Finals is probably one of the biggest crowds I've ever raced against, but even with that, they're by far the biggest name drivers I've ever raced against, and just to think that I am on the same track as them was insane.
You qualified 7th, ran 5th, her first time in a 410, and then yeah, World Finals. She got the full experience at the World Finals, good, bad, and ugly. So
we're now working with Pediatric Cancer Foundation, and just to see the kids with cancer, it makes my heart hurt. So to be able to work with them and just show them and hopefully introduce them to racing in a way for the kids that would like it, it makes me happy to be able to work with kids because I do have a past history with cancer in my family.
I'm really proud to be her father, and it's hard to believe she's come this far and she's only 16.
Shane Stewart said it the best. He's like, man, she's got everything it takes. She's got to be patient. So 5 years, there's no reason she can't be running. If she wants to run the Outlaw Tour, there's absolutely zero reason she can't be running the Outlaw Tour.
Yeah, for years I tried to talk her out of it because as it got more and more serious, I realized how expensive this was, and this was just to have fun. This was nothing but fun and enjoyment and pleasure.
It's kind of like a part of her. We can't explain it, but she just continues on and on and on from, I think she can drive just about anything there is out there. Just something in her, just something that she just loves. It's a passion.